Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Chips and Salsa, where we talk about security at Intel with our own industry experts. I'm Jerry.
I'm CRob.
Today, we're talking about hardware common weakness enumeration or hardware CWEs, what they are, how Intel has been involved in their development, and how we have adopted their use internally.
Yeah, somebody might think on the surface this doesn't really sound like a very exciting topic. But the reality is, recent developments in this area are going to have a lot of positive impact in the hardware industry. Our guest today is Jason Fung. He's our Director of Offensive Security Research and Academic Research here at Intel. Jason has been super active in the development of these hardware CWEs, so let's bring him on board and talk a little bit about these developments.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Great to have you. Welcome.
So, Jason, good to see you again. Can you start by telling us what you do here at Intel?
Sure. Yeah. So I play three roles at Intel. First, I oversee the offensive security research of key technologies that power Intel's edge, communication, and data center products. So I manage a set of very talented researchers trying to poke holes at our products, trying to find ways to address these holes. And hopefully we get a really compelling set of products by the time when it gets to the hands of the customers. And the second part is I also own Intel's security assurance tool and methodology roadmap. And my team is responsible to bring this best-in-class security assurance capabilities for the designers so that they can actually develop secure products with confidence. And third is I also connect the thought leaders in the academia and industry to address some of these Intel's and the industry's toughest challenge. And through sponsored research, through cultivation of the talent pipeline, organizing some of the hardware capture the flag competitions that are quite unique in the industry. We want to attract the top minds to work on hardware security research.
You're a busy guy.
Try to be.
That's awesome. That's honestly phenomenal. Could you possibly tell us, what is hardware common weakness enumeration?
Yeah, so let me start with common weakness enumeration. So common weakness enumeration, CWE, is a community-driven resource that captures patterns of security weaknesses often overlooked by developers. It is currently maintained by MITRE, and it is a community-driven resource. So we have teams coming from like academia, industry, and government organizations all working towards it. So this primer has been around since 2006 with the focus to help software developers to have a common taxonomy for weakness identification, mitigation, and prevention. And through a partnership with Intel last year, CWE has now been expanded to cover hardware weaknesses as well. And thanks to the contributions of all these great collaborators, we now have 98 hardware weakness patterns. And grouped under 12 top-level categories. And these categories feature some of the common security themes like you see on the screen about the security flow issues, the integration issues, crypto and primitives, etc. And some other themes actually are grouped under hardware IP building blocks that these weaknesses are often associated with, like the core and compute, storage and memory, power, clock reset, and debug and test, for example. So when you go through any of these entries, it'll give you a diagnosis about what problem are we talking about, what are the root causes, what kind of attack patterns that often associated with the weakness, and some demonstrative examples. So it shows people how to find them and how to mitigate them. So I would encourage any development team working on hardware space to check out the resources.
That's awesome. So, in your opinion, why is it important for Intel to be involved in the development of hardware CWEs?
Yeah, so the goal is to provide this openly accessible resource so that any hardware security assurance teams can use the capability. So we want to kind of lift the entire industry. But it starts with a more humble goal at the beginning. So back in the days, I think about 2014, I was looking around for tools for the teams that I'm working with. And my goal at that time is to enable the designers to build hardware solutions. So we look at the kind of issues we found at Intel every year and try to do these retrospective. And we categorize the issues into buckets, and we tell teams about, hey, for these kind of issues that we see often, go to learn about these issues. This is how you can find them. This is how you can detect them. So we kind of start off our own CWE internally at that time. But then when the designers come back to say, hey, Jason, I know about this issue, but how can you help me to find them more automatically? Now I go out and look for tools. And when I look at the EDA, the electronic design automation availability, I don't find them. And when I talk to my colleagues in these organizations, and they said, you know what, Jason, I don't even know what you're talking about. The SOC issues that you talk about doesn't seem to be a common theme. And sometimes when you even file academic papers to academic conferences, we got feedback about who says this is the largest, biggest issues that we need to work on, right? So at that time, I realized by not sharing and enabling our community to understand what are the industry problem, it becomes very difficult to get all these academic and industry support to enable designers in general. So starting with summer 2019, we shared this vision with MITRE and work with them to come up with the hardware version of the CWE. The response is very compelling coming from them. They say, hey, let's do it together. And in a few short months, in CWE 4.0 major release, we get our first iteration of Hardware CWE release finally in the month of February of 2020.
Nice.
That's awesome. I had done some similar things in the software space. CWE is an amazing tool to help product teams and developers kind of learn and do better. But that kind of inspires a two-part question for me, and they're related. From your perspective, why should the industry care, and why should academia care about these hardware CWEs?
Yeah, that's a great question, CRob. So the way I look at it is that from an industry point of view, we all want to deliver technologies that enriches people's lives. And we all know that technologies that really secure and trustworthy are the anchor for people to be able to benefit from. So industry teams, they have solutions that they want to build. They invest efforts into these product assurance activities, and they may look into, like, at the beginning of the stage about threat model. Architect may want to enrich the threat model to address any threats, right, that their product are relevant to. How do they know they cover all the ground, right? They can come to the CWE and figure out, oh, these are the 98 issues that are being observed as common problems. Let me make sure any relevant ones, I find ways to address them. Same goes for the designers. When they create their implementation, how can I know I'm not running into the common pitfalls? Come to the CWEs, right? Verification teams, what kind of methodology can I use to detect issues? Come to the CWE. And then also for the pre-cert, the product security incidents response teams, when I look into incoming issues, how can I classify the issues? How can I understand the root cause? And how can I drive learning back to my organizations? CWE also provides some ideas. So I think that is the first set of industry players that needs to pay attention to this. Second is about the electronic design automation organizations, where they come up with automation schemes to help these individuals to build secure hardware. They often come across as, what problem can I solve for your industry? What are the security issues that I can automate the finding for them? So CWE help them to understand these are the classes of issues that are still commonly occurred, and they can come up with the techniques, whether it is simulation, emulation, formal verification, or static analysis, right? We need more techniques to make that happen. And third part is about the education service. I can imagine someone can create some certification of hardware security knowledge, right? And you can enrich people by taking my training, taking my certification. Now you can become a guru in hardware security design and architecture, right? It could be fun, right?
Yeah.
Academia is leading the bleeding edge of research, and they can also understand by having these common issues happening in the industry design. We have problem, that means the solutions is not there, right? So researchers can look into like new architectures, new features, new systemic mitigations, and new methodology to solve some of these problems. So they can get inspiration from the CWE as well.
That's great. So I'm pulling up this list, Jason, from 2021 CWE most important hardware weaknesses that was published recently. Can you tell us about this?
Yeah, so this is actually a fresh, hot, off the press list. I call it the top 12. So we just got the Hardware CWE special interest group together over the past few months. We have been working towards to solve this problem about if someone new to use Hardware CWE, if someone who may not be very well versed in hardware security, but they want to get a first step, where should they start, right? Think about 98 entries of information to plow through. It is a lot of work. But if we can zoom into the most important, the most common ones, and provide a glimpse for people to start with, this is the place, right? So this is how we spotlight some of the common themes that we see that are suffered by products as voted by this community representing the government, the industry, and the academia together.
What did you find? What was the most surprising item on the list to you?
Yeah, so actually, all 12 issues are very well thought out and are very well balanced. We see some of these issues on the access control, some of them are on debug and test, in proper implementation of protections or security flows, and physical assurance. So they are really balanced. So I'm not surprised by any of these issues. Maybe the most surprising part for me is that we have dozens of organizations coming together to come up with this top 12. And I'm surprised how so much alignment that we have in place, that these top 12 are being nominated and everybody believes they are actually something worth looking into.
Wow, that's great to get that agreement.
Yes, it is hard these days, isn't it?
So, yeah, right. So as we're approaching the end of 2021 and heading into 2022, what is it you would like to see happening in hardware CWE for the future?
Yeah, I think we have a great start for the past less than 2-year-old CWE. We definitely want more people to be able to start using it. And using it now, you can actually generate some insights based on your own data and share those data back to the community. So right now, for the first year of the top 12, we do this voting, right? People say, hey, these are my top issues, and this is your top issues. We group them together and bubble them up. We want to be more scientific, right? We want to go back to next year's CVEs. And now looking at a full year of CVEs that are tagged with hardware CWEs, now we can bubble up the real hardware CWE issues as observed, right, by the whole industry. And why this is important, now we can actually direct more people's attention to the areas to investigate for systemic mitigations, for education, for tooling. And also we can project what are we getting, the whole industry is getting upcoming for the next year, so we can better prepare for it.
That's awesome. I really love this. It's kind of the intersection of standards and research and actual practice. It's very, very exciting.
Exactly.
We want to thank you for coming today, Jason, and taking your time. This is a very important topic, and we really appreciate your efforts on behalf of Intel, the industry, and our customers in this.
Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. I'm looking forward to including some of that CWE data in future product security reports.
Awesome.
So, yeah, thanks for joining us. Well, that's a wrap for this episode of Chips and Salsa. On behalf of myself and CRob, thank you for watching, and happy holidays, happy New Year. We'll see you next time.